Hi, I'm Jay Link, President of Stewardship Ministries. Have you ever felt like you were about to walk into a den of hungry lions? Well, in addressing man's first stewardship assignment, I sense that I'm about to do that. And I expect by the time I am done, many of you may think I sound like some flaming, radical, liberal, vegetarian environmentalist. As much as I bristle at that thought, in this one area of earth stewardship, I think the liberals actually have a more sound position and appropriate concern for earth care than most born-again believers do. Please keep in mind, however, the liberals' underlying motivation for carefully stewarding our earth is fundamentally different than ours. Liberals are compelled to steward our planet because they believe that earth is our mother. Believers, on the other hand, should be compelled to steward our planet because we believe that God is our Father. Even though the recommended action steps for earth care may be identical with both ideologies, the foundational reason for our concern and respect for the earth will be strikingly different. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." Unfortunately, their planet can be too. So let's expand our knowledge and see what we might need to do with this important first stewardship assignment. There are actually two creation accounts of man, a general one in Genesis 1 and a specific one in Genesis 2. In 1:26, God says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion, rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." 2:15 adds more detail. Here God puts Adam and Eve in the garden and directs them to work and to keep the land. The words translated work and keep in the ESV can be misleading and seriously understate the fuller meaning of their assignment. The Hebrew word for work is actually a word used to describe the service a slave gives to his master. And the Hebrew word for keep means to preserve something for future generations. So a more complete expression of our earth stewardship assignment would be to serve and preserve. What has gone wrong is that fallen man has mistakenly replaced the idea of dominion, to serve and preserve, with exploitation, to use and abuse. Man's incurable lust for more and bigger and better has led him to view the earth as nothing more than a natural resource to be harvested for profit and pleasure. And then once he has extracted from it what he wants, he moves on, often leaving the land and waters polluted, denatured, and scarred beyond repair. We unconsciously consume our natural resources as if there is an unlimited supply. Because of our preferred lifestyles, hundreds of God's created species have and continue to become extinct with little or no thought or concern on our part as to what it might mean to the earth or to their Creator. We contaminate our lands and waters with little consideration of the long-term impact on the planet or those who will come after us. We vehemently object to how our government borrows money, leaving our children and our grandchildren to figure out how to pay it back. Yet we seem quite oblivious to the environmental destruction we are leaving behind for future generations to try to repair and or clean up. Neither is likely possible. Ezekiel 34:18 confronts this "I've got what I want, I'm not concerned about the rest" attitude when he asks, "Is it not enough for you to feed on the green pastures? Must you also trample the rest with your feet? Is it not enough for you to drink pure water? Must you also muddy the rest of the water with your feet?" Is it any wonder that God's whole creation is groaning, Romans 8:22, under our abusive exploitation? Think about it. Should we not, as good stewards of our Father's world, do all we can to reduce our current consumption footprint on earth in order to better serve and preserve His planet? Calvin DeWitt, a Christian environmentalist, said it well in his book Earthwise. "All the things we use, all the things we make, everything we manipulate, everything we accumulate derives from the creation itself. If we learn to seek godly contentment as our great gain, we will take and shape less of God's earth. We will demand less from the land. We will leave room for the other creatures. Let's consider just one area of our earth stewardship assignment. One of God's foundational commands to Israel was that the land was to have a Sabbath rest every seventh year. The lands were to lay fallow and not be worked, Leviticus 25, 1 through 7. But as was often the case, the Israelites ignored this command. What is fascinating is that the amount of time that the Israelites were forced to spend in captivity in Babylon, 70 years, is equal to the number of Sabbath years they failed to rest their land. God was clearly not happy with how they failed to handle their stewardship assignment. He tells the Israelites, "I will make the land desolate so that your enemies who settle in it will be appalled over you. You, however, I will scatter among the nations, and I will draw out a sword after you, and your lands become desolate, and your cities become waste. Then the land will enjoy its Sabbaths all the days of the desolation. While you are in your enemies' lands, the land will rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. All the days of its desolation, it will observe the rest which you did not observe on your Sabbaths while you were living in it." Leviticus 26, 32 through 35. As Kyle and Delich, the Old Testament commentators say, by causing the land to remain uncultivated for 70 years, God gave to the land a time of rest and refreshment, which its inhabitants, so long as they possessed it, had not given it. Allowing fields to periodically lay fallow has long been accepted as beneficial to the land. Why then don't today's farmers allow their land to occasionally lay fallow instead of keeping it under constant production as they do? The answer is painfully simple. They just can't afford to. Modern agriculture is so expensive. The machinery, fuel, pesticides, fertilizers, and even seed that farmers have to keep every inch of their farmland in full production just to pay their debts and make a modest living. To better understand this situation and the causes for it, consider the following staggering statistics. 80% of the U.S. farmlands are being used to raise food for the animals we eat. 30% of the world's entire land mass is in production to feed the animals that we eat. 70% of all grain grown in the U.S. is used to feed the animals that we eat. Nearly 50% of the fresh water used in the U.S. is used to raise the animals we eat. It takes about 2,500 gallons of water to produce a single pound of meat. It takes only 25 gallons of water to produce a pound of wheat. Animals raised for food produce about 130 times as much excrement as the entire human population. And animal farms pollute our waterways more than all other industrial sources combined. More than a third of all raw materials and fossil fuels consumed in the United States are used in animal production. 7 football fields of forest lands are being bulldozed every minute to clear more room for farmed animals and the crops that feed them as emerging nations adopt our Western meat-eating diet. It takes 16 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of meat. It takes 4 acres to feed a meat eater and only a half acre to feed a non-meat eater. A half acre can produce 5 tons of apples and 10 tons of potatoes. That same half acre can produce only 100 pounds of meat. Do you see the close connection between our appetite for animal flesh, which was not part of man's original Garden of Eden diet, Genesis 1:29, and our exploitation of the planet we are to serve and preserve? We could easily give all the farmland a periodic rest if we simply ate the food we raised instead of feeding it to animals and then eating the animals. If we did this, we could also wipe out world hunger without needing to plow even one more new acre of farmland. As Jeremy Rifkin poignantly observed, meat makes the rich ill and the poor hungry. Can you see the close connection between these two stewardship responsibilities? By choosing to be better stewards of His body, we will automatically become better stewards of His earth. It's all tied together. Unfortunately, I've only scratched the surface of this massive earth stewardship responsibility. But here are a few key questions I think we ought to ask ourselves. Will this new knowledge and awareness actually change how I live? Will I choose to do anything differently that will reduce the size of my current consumption footprint? 1, for the good of this planet, 2, for the sake of those who will come after me, and 3, and most importantly, to show respect for the landlord who has entrusted this planet to me to serve and preserve. As Jeannie Greenough recognized, I'm only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I can't do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. May this become our attitude as we seek to be good stewards of our Father's world.